Welcome everyone back to another video. This time I've got Granitor Total War with me here to talk about some interesting possible things of translating lore to being applicable in Total War Warhammer. Say hi, Granitor.
G'day, how you going?
So one note that I want to make real quick is that this is going to be part one of a two-part little recording session. If you want to get the other half of this conversation, you'll have to go over to Granitor's channel and check it out. He's got some really awesome videos on Total War. He's got some nice lore videos that are very bite-sized and awesome, which is better than the system that I have, unfortunately. And
Yeah,
his
thanks, man.
and his duo 2v2 tournament vids for Total War Warhammer or Total War, excuse me, are really, really good. He's clearly a better general than I am. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. So one of the first questions I've got is, so in tabletop, one situation that we have to balance the armies is that they all have really different levels of morale, like across the armies. So dwarves in this instance would be a really high morale army. Undead tend to be unbreakable because they follow a different mechanic, which we'll get into in a second. Goblins tend to have very low morale, and then humans are about the center. Do you think there's a way that this could be problematic, or do you think it'll be easier for them to do? I'm not sure if that's translated in any way to previous Total War titles.
Yep. With the way Total War works is just one morale system over the whole board, usually. And your elite units do have a little bit more morale, but mainly just for your medium units and your weaker units, it's just the normal kind of morale system over the board. But yeah, when you talk about different types of factions having more morale than the other, yeah, I doubt that that'll come through because of the balance issue. Yes.
Okay, great.
Unfortunately.
Well, and there have been some interesting things I've seen, such as I think I saw in the battle for Thundering Falls, the goblins had the expendable rule, which looks like it'll be pretty unique. I don't know if that's ever existed before in Total War. Of that idea of just if a unit breaks, the units around them don't suffer morale penalties. And we have things like the Slayers, which apparently have super high morale, which I'm not sure if they meant that means they're unbreakable or if it's just they're very unlikely to break.
Yeah, well, they'll have the super morale because they take on the big trolls, and what will happen with the trolls and all the other units, what they implement in the Total War series is the fear effect. Now, the fear effect depletes the morale of the troops around them, so that's why they've probably got the morale on the Slayers so high and almost unbreakable.
All right. So another question is, so obviously we've kind of seen some crazy mechanics coming into Total War, and since I come from a much heavier Warhammer background, I played a lot of it, but the only game I played was Shogun 2. But are there any of the new systems, such as ethereal units, which granted we haven't seen anything on yet, flying units, monsters, are there any that you would find particularly concerning for the idea of like online competitive play?
Yeah, well, the flying units is something new to the whole game completely, you know what I mean? So it's going to really take me by surprise as well. I've never seen anything like it, but yeah, as far as the way Shogun 2 played, the avatar system was where you could make your own kind of unit up and the skills to whichever way you wanted to play. So if you were an attacker, you could put heaps of morale on your troops and attack and charge skill. See, that'd be excellent for this game. It's what this game needs. But as for the flying units, your dragons, your whatnot, yeah, I'm totally do not know how they're going to implement that, to tell you the truth. What I've seen from that video is with the helicopters. They seem like they can get into the back of your army pretty easy. I do want to know whether you get the attacked in the rear penalty if they're shooting you from behind or not. Like That's one thing that I would like to be more specific, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Well, I just learned something there. I didn't know that that was a penalty in Total War to be shot from behind.
Yeah, there's a penalty. Yeah, if you're getting attacked in the rear by a unit, there's an attack in the rear penalty. So if you're behind a unit and you're shooting them from the sky, I don't know whether they're going to implement attack in the rear penalty or whatnot. But also, like with archers, if you're getting shot in the back, you're going to get smashed anyway because you haven't got the shields in the front, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so if you're getting shot from behind with the archers, they're going to go down quicker. Same thing with the flying units. Let's say you get shot from behind. But if the flying unit comes in from behind your army and starts shooting, I don't know. I just don't know how that's going to work with the attacked in the rear penalty as well. So whether you're going to get attacked in the rear penalty there, I'm not sure. It's hard to say, really.
Right.
But that's one thing that needs to be sorted out.
Yeah. Well, they've got 5 months left till release, I believe.
Yep.
So next question.
The game's already done, I think.
I
think
probably.
They're just fine tuning.
Yeah. Well,
sure.
They've got a lot of fine tuning to do. I'm still waiting for our vampire count trailer. So next, I'm not sure if this is the case in Total War, but in Warhammer, armies tend to have to rely really heavily on being able to defend on all fronts. And I guess what I mean by that is in tabletop or in the lore, you have to have really balanced armies to worry about dealing with fast cavalry, flyers. You have to have your answer to monsters, extremely heavy armor, extremely heavy, light cavalry, and characters. And I was wondering if you felt that the Total War community would adjust to that idea really easily, like if they're already used to that, or if having to deal with a lot of these more exotic things that will require hard counters. Like with flyers, it looks like flyers are going to never land sometimes, which could mean that not taking ranged units might not be a literal possibility if you want to have a competitive shot.
Yeah. Well, what happened with Rome when it first came out, it was very bugged. You could just bring elite units and click the bloody attack order, then go away for a cup of tea, and they'd win. So they had to patch that out, and they've done the balancing issue now. But in Attila, I've noticed the cavalry is way too strong. It can attack spears from the front and beat spears. It can attack a shield ball from the front and beat it, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure what they're going to do. They've kind of gone from one extreme to the other, from Rome to Attila with the cavalry, because in Rome too the cavalry was very weak. It wasn't very weak. You had to use it the right way. You couldn't attack something from the front; it wouldn't do much. You had to get that rear charge in, and then it started be devastating. But in Attila, everyone is just using a lot of cavalry and just charging the line front on. And I'm not sure which way they're going to go. We're balancing between that or whatnot. But yeah, that there is not a very balanced army, you know what I mean? You can just bring heaps of cavalry and charge the front line in Attila. And I'm a bit scared because the cavalry in Warhammer is very, very tough. So, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. But with the range units, you're going to have to, with the flying units, you're going to have range now. So you're going to have to bring your archers and your crossbows and whatnot to counter the flying units, because when they're coming across and fly over top of your line, you've got to have something in the back line to stop them, and that's the only thing that's going to do that is the ranged units. So I would say that there is going to be a heavy emphasis on ranged units in the game for that exact purpose of countering the flying units. And but all-round balanced armies, I'm not quite sure. I think there's going to be another heavy emphasis on artillery, which in the other games there was not. Like when I'm doing a multiplayer game, I put down no art, because the artillery, like I make the rule no artillery, because it's just so weak that you're wasting your funds.
Right, whereas
you know
now,
I mean? Someone can just come up,
we got like dwarves.
It's not going to be a standoff fight.
Right, dwarves will probably never leave home without at least 3 different kinds of artillery weapons now. So that's actually. So another big one I had is So it seems like we're heading kind of in a direction of micromanaging during battles, in that
Hmm.
you're going to have wizards that you have to worry about your magic bar and when to cast the right spell at the right time. We're going to have characters who have special abilities that seem like they can only recharge in certain circumstances. Like we know for a fact the Dwarf Thane has an ability that only works in combat, well, when he's charging, and can only
Yep.
be recharged in close combat, and all sorts of stuff like that. But it also looks like a lot of
Hmm.
units have lost activatable abilities. So do you think we're going to see an increase in micromanaging during battles, or do you think they're going to put the
Yeah.
emphasis on these characters but take them away from the units, so we
Well,
won't have all those, like I know in Shogun 2, all of
mm,
my different units, almost each unit had an activatable ability if I upgraded my tree well
yep.
enough. But it looks like we're not
Well, what
seeing
they've
that as
done
much.
now is they've actually they have got activated abilities, but it's automatic in the unit. If you've seen the Battle of Blackfire Pass when the trolls are spewing,
Uh-huh.
that used to be a button where you press the spewing button. But now what it is they've just put it automatically into the unit, so the unit will use the ability when it needs to. And with the dwarves, you might as well say they're on shield wall all the time. So you can see they're nice, grouped, bunched in together into shield wall formation. So the units are automatic. The abilities are automatic on the unit now. So yeah, that's what they've done now. So it cuts down to micromanagement. The only ones you have to micromanage is the helicopters, have you seen, with the bombs, and the hero units with their potions and whatnot. So
Right. And
yes,
I imagine
I'm not sure about that
we might see another
because
bomb mechanic as
yeah,
well with the
hmm,
Iron Breakers, because I know they mentioned in the trailer for the
yep,
Iron Breakers, and just from tabletop experience, they have Cinder Blast bombs, which are
uh-huh,
thrown grenades.
yep. Yeah, we'll see. But I think they're trying to cut down the micromanagement because there is so much in the game
Right.
to do. You know what I mean? With your wizard and your wizard spells, you've got to concentrate on that a little bit more while the battle's going. And it's hard enough to now hit shield ball on your units. You know, you've got bloody so many units in the game that you have to go along and see which ones need shield ball. And yeah, so I think they've just tried to steer away from the micromanagement a bit of just your actual units and made their abilities automatic, which is fine. But with me, I like to micromanage that and put the abilities on when I needed them,
Right.
and where I needed them, not just have them automatically onto the unit. So that's why the dwarves are going to be slow now, because they've automatically got the shield ball ability on. So they're slow,
Uh-huh.
they're lumbering because they've got that shield ball ability locked into the unit.
Right.
So yeah, that's gonna be something that's going to take a bit of getting used to, because I'm going to be looking for abilities everywhere to press. But yeah, we'll see how that goes, mate. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, I must say. I think they should have kept the abilities there
hmm
to use them in a certain area, because if you've got a place where there's a defile and you've got a unit stuck in there and you want to just hold it off, but you want to stretch it out a bit further, but you can't because it's already locked into shield ball. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's something that's it's gonna take its toll on me, really, because I like to spread out my units and make a good line of them, and spaghetti lines, you might as well say. But if it's locked into shield wall, I'm not sure how that's going to work. You're going to have a unit next to it in case it gets outflanked from shrinking the unit in the shield wall. Yes, so that's an issue it's going to have to be looked at, I think,
I almost
from my
wonder.
perspective, anyway.
I almost wonder if we're gonna see. I can't help but feel like with the Empire, we might actually get those units that have clickable abilities to able to take certain formations with your
Mm.
spearmen or your halberdiers. Dwarves definitely will, to me, seem like the kind of race where if they're charging, they'll take the resolute ability, which in tabletop dwarves, if they
Yep,
get charged, they're always considered in a shield wall. Yeah, and if they do
yep,
charge,
yep.
then they get the resolute ability, which means they do more damage on the charge. But for dwarves, there is no in between, and they are
Okay.
always slow as dirt. You know,
Slow, yeah.
they move about as fast as paint dries. So I wonder if
Yeah.
maybe that'll be a weakness of the dwarves, is that they won't be able to change their unit stances like that, whereas the Empire might be able to have that ability. Greenskins, who knows with greenskins.
Greenskins are always just a mob. Yeah, so they're just going to be the mob formation. But I'm not sure how they're going to. Or as you've seen in the Battle of Blackfire Pass when they did charge, they kind of grouped together a little bit more when they hit the charge.
Right.
That was my biggest fear. If they're in a mob formation, spread out, how's their charge effectiveness going to be? But you did see kind of squish together a little bit when they hit the charge and all jump and get the charge in. So that wasn't too bad there. But the looks like they're in loose formation almost straight up, doesn't it?
True.
With the orcs. But yeah, well, it's meant to be a big, massive, unruly orc. So I suppose that works for them there. But yeah, they are a heavy charging faction from what I understand. The orcs. So they need to get that charging.
That is charging is certainly a very orcish thing.
Yeah, that's where they do their best work on the charge. So.
Oh yeah, that chopper rule.
Bit worried that they're not. Yeah, the chopper rule. What's that one?
The chopper rule in tabletop is that when orcs charge or when orcs get in a fight, regardless of how they get to the fight, they always get higher strength that first round of combat. And orcs also have the Wah special rule, which is that they have a higher chance of breaking enemy morale when their general charges along with most of the army, because he declares a Wah, and this makes the orcs really pumped up, and they do a lot more morale-based damage.
Okay, all right, yeah. Well, hopefully they implement that across the board, but yeah. That's what I've heard about the orcs is their charge is the biggest thing. You do need to get that off. And you'll see a lot of meat shielding. That's what we call it when you put a weaker unit out the front.
Okay.
And to stop charges. So that's one thing I'm worried about is this meat shielding. So some people can put the weakest unit, the cost stuff all out the front of their army and block the charge of the orcs. That's going to take a lot off the orcs, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they can't get that charge on the elite units.
Well, I bet orcs are probably going to have to rely on a good strategy of sending things forward like chariots or monsters, wyverns, for flyers, or goblin. I mean, those spider riders, those guys are quick to beat up
they're quick, yeah. They're good for flanking.
Yeah, but they're probably... I imagine the orcs, and this will probably be more of an orcish thing than anyone else, will have to rely on wiping out those screen units and taking out enemy fast cav. That way, the main line of the orcs, your black orcs, your orc boys, all that stuff, can just advance straight into the enemy line without getting held up.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, it's going to have to be a thing is the orcs are going to have to get rid of enemy cavalry and flanking troops quick so that once they do get the charge off, they can flank themselves and get rid of the skirmish of the enemy. And them spider riders look like they do a perfect job of that, coming around the flanks really quick. And it's going to have to be, a certain amount of care taken when you're facing the orcs that you can get your skirmish protected out the back there.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see how that works.
Okay, and this is more of a...
Yeah, I think...
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, finish your thought.
You're right, mate.
Okay.
No, you're right, mate. Yeah.
All right. This is more of a niche question, but what do you think of the addition of that kind of bizarre thing we can do now of going into first person to control our war machines and firing them, which we've seen for...
Yeah, you have no time whatsoever in battle.
Right.
No time at all. So it's
definitely probably a single player niche thing for fun.
Yeah, just a single player thing, but even then you haven't got time as well. Unless you're going to sit there and camp and wait for the enemy to come to you, you could probably do it 2 or 3 times, but yeah.
That reminds me, how do you feel? Obviously, they've made it clear that the footage we've been shown is not, is subject to change and all that stuff. How do you feel about the pacing so far of the game? Because I've heard a lot of complaints that the battle for the battle for Thundering Falls seemed very fast-paced, like uncomfortably fast to most players.
It's fast-paced, but yeah, this is one thing I wanted them to try with the AI, and that's make it intelligent. You've seen the battle of, not the battle of Blackfire Pass, the ambush battle. that we've seen. You kind of seen them coming out and rushing straight for the army. I wanted to see them use them artillery pieces a bit more, and the army sit back with the artillery pieces and maybe launch a few of them at the dwarves first before they all started rushing in. I wanted to see the AI actually think and be smart. It's got ranged artillery. It didn't need to go in. It could have softened up the enemy first, you know what I mean? But it seems they've made the emphasis that everything's just going to rush at you, you know what I mean, and not think. It did get around the flanks a bit more with them spider riders, but then you've seen another blob of spider riders run straight at them. So, and then they sat outside, lingering in that position where the flamethrowers could just kill them. And they were just lingering there. They weren't charging forward. They weren't going backwards. They were kind of lingering there a bit, and they got smashed, you know what I mean? So I would have liked them to sit back just a little bit, you know, come in from the sides, whatever, move back out of range a bit, bring their artillery piece up, and just soften up the dwarves a bit, and then start working from there. But that's asking too much for an AI, I think. But it's sad when you've got this artillery piece up the back doing nothing. You know what I mean? And the whole army's dead, and the artillery piece has got 2 shots off.
I almost wonder if there was something to do with maybe the Doom Diver started out of range, or there was something to try and make it a little bit easier for people that were just enjoying that first game. Because maybe, you know, when we get to fight the AI, well, I wouldn't be surprised if the Orc and Goblin AI is a little bit more aggressive with just running everything they can at your face. Yeah. But if the Spider Riders are actually smart enough to run around the side and go for war machines and stuff, that's not bad. But I hope that the AI for each of the factions is exotically different. So I hope when I fight Dwarf AI, they literally will turtle up, as we call it, up in the corner and just shoot you to death as you try and run across to go get them. Which will be frustrating in some ways, but that's how dwarves should play.
Yeah. They have made it so the dwarven artillery pieces are less ranged. So if they do try and turtle up and you're the Empire, you've got artillery pieces, your artillery piece is going to cut them to ribbons. So the dwarves can't really turtle up because their artillery's range is a lot less than anyone else's.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard about that yet. That's one thing they're
trying to make. Yeah, no, they're trying to make that so. Dwarven artillery pieces, put it this way, have got like 125 range, whereas everyone else has got 150 range and 175 range or whatever. You know, just for example, it'll probably be a lot more than that, but just that. So they're going to have the 25% less range, so you can just get out of the range of their artillery pieces, but hit them. So that's made so the dwarves can't camp, so they can't camp in one spot and just blast you to pieces with their artillery. So
I think
if you're the dwarves and you want to sit there, you're going to get hammered. So
I think that's good. I think that's a good balance idea, though, because in tabletop we definitely suffer from dwarf armies that like to hide in the corner.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
yeah, they've actually finally done that. Whereas you know what I mean? My biggest fear, the dwarves were going to sit there and they were going to just camp the spot and be able to rip everyone apart with their artillery. But they did say in an interview I watched that, their artillery's very underranged.
Well, I find that
compared to everyone else's.
I find that exciting. I mean, I imagine it'll be harder hitting, if not more accurate. Well, probably just due to the sheer volume of it. In that they've got, flame cannons, grudge throwers, cannons, organ guns.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of firepower. But
it is a lot of firepower.
I like that a lot.
But you've got to get into range, and no one's going to sit there and walk up into the range of that, are they?
Right.
They're going to pick their spot. They're going to get into trees, hide, and try and flank around it as they're attacking the dwarves. But this is what the point I made before. They're making so the dwarves have to be the attackers.
Yeah, well, I really like that idea. That's in that it sounds like if
that's going to make everyone else camp.
Yeah. Well, I do like the idea, though, that it sounds like the dwarves will be able to, if the dwarves will still need to bring miners to the table who may have the ambush rule if they're brought like their tabletop counterparts and their gyrocopters. Those would be essential units to try and obliterate enemy siege weapons so that the enemy is forced to come into dwarven range. So that's a really awesome...
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that playing dwarves won't just be easy mode, so to speak, of just,
I'm
going to park here and
you're going to have to be an attacker. Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing I thought. Like, I never thought the dwarves would have to be the attacker, but by the sounds of it, they're going to be forced into being the attacker. So when you're the dwarves, you got the gyrocopters, yeah, but if someone's sitting there with 5 archers and or crossbows, you're just going to be able to hit the gyrocopters as they're coming in. So that's going to
The dwarves
really
will have
the
to play smart.
gyrocopters aren't.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll be relying on that
so
high armor, no doubt.
No doubt, and that's the thing. But they're going to be lumbering slow. So when they're forced to attack, they're going to be lumbering slow over the field, which is going to give everyone else's artillery pieces a chance to rip them apart.
All right. Do you have any thoughts on the? I don't know if you're like super familiar enough with them to have a real opinion on it yet, but do you have any thought about the undead coming into the game, just because of how exotically bizarre they are compared to every other faction?
The undead, yeah. Well, one thing I've really wondered about the undead is the zombies.
Right.
They are going to annoy me how slow they are. Yeah, they're going to be too slow, I think. Like, for anything, they've got to increase the speed just a little bit so it's not so annoying. Because they're a lumbering unit, aren't they? They're just going to lumber forward at the slowest pace on Earth.
Vampire counts have in tabletop, which if this translates, the balance to vampire counts on tabletop is that they rely very heavily on a caster or a lord being nearby to animate them. If they're within range of the general, the entire army moves just as fast as a regular army. But if the vampire counts have access to magic, they actually they can move twice as fast as any other army in the game, which is really scary. You can get zombies that are literally moving as fast as cavalry in tabletop.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll see how that translates, but I'm not quite sure whether they'll do that one.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm wondering about too is can the vampire counts reanimate the dead enemies?
Yep, and we'll talk about that more in your segment, because we should probably wrap this up here in just a sec.
True, yeah.
Real quick,
That's
though,
right.
I got two last the most important questions. First being, of all the things you've seen so far, or just based on your own knowledge, which army are you the most excited to play, and who do you think... So the first question is, which army and legendary lords do you think will be your first run?
Well, which army I'm excited to play, sorry? You want me to answer that first?
Uh-huh.
Yep. Well, which army I'm excited to play, I'm an underdog kind of person. I love being the underdog, so I think the Empire is the one I'm going to really like to play. Because they're not going to have, all the hard-ass units like the trolls and that. So, yeah, I'm just excited to play the Empire. Probably the only person, but yeah, I'm a real underdog kind of person. You know what I mean? But I also like the orcs. I do like the orcs. So it's either going to be the orcs because I'm a aggressive attacker in any of my battles. You won't see me sit back.
Oh yeah, I've definitely noticed that.
You'll see me.
Your chariot plays are terrifying.
That's the weakest chariot you can get too, actually. So, yeah.
Well, you made damn good use of them in that battle.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to push the pace of the battle, and I like to be aggressive. So, and I like to rely on units to help me in that area. So, I don't know. I think I'll go with the Empire first and give the Empire a go. I think
any legendary lord that's caught your attention? So for the Empire, I believe we've got Balthazar Gelt, Emperor Karl Franz.
Yeah. I like all them, but the lords I'm mostly I like the best of the orc ones. Yeah, the orc lords have just got that awesome history about them and the way they come up. You know what I mean?
Well, plus Grimgor Ironhide looks like he'll be pretty fun.
Oh, he'll be fun to play, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be the orc lords I'm more excited about, but the Empire is one I want to play. So,
gotcha.
I'm kind of a mixed bag there.
All right, and then probably the last question I have. This will be the last question. I've seen this on the forums, and I've got my own opinion on it. But is there an army? That based on what you've seen and based on what we'll talk about? This is more of a preemptive question, I guess. Is there an army you think will be the easiest for Total War players to transfer into to get used to the fantasy way of doing things?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the Empire one will be the easiest for people to translate to, from coming from Total War. But also, I think on the other hand, the Orcs as well are just a strong attacking faction. So I think that'll be translated well too
Okay,
to the Total War players. Yeah.
great. All right.
No
Well,
worries, man.
thanks everyone for tuning in to this talk. This lasted about twice as long as I
Yes.
thought it would. Remember to
Thank you very
catch.
much for watching. Yes.
Yeah, remember to catch the second
Thank you
half.
very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you. It's nice to be able to talk to someone about these
Excellent,
kinds of
mate.
things. Remember to catch the second half of this discussion. You will need to go over to Granitor's channel, which I'll have a link to the video and his channel down in the description box. It's a really awesome channel. He's kind of like I could almost describe him as the Bob Ross of Total War. I love listening to his videos. For those,
Thank you, sir.
in any event, I'll catch you guys later. I'll have some more videos out later this week. All that jazz. Talk to you later. Bye. Hey guys, I just wanted to put a little segment at the end of this to thank Granitor Total War again so much. Big thanks to him for coming over to talk with me. I was really glad that he was willing to do this, and I had a ton of fun. I would love to do it again in the future. He's a really great person, awesome to talk to. You guys be sure to show him some love. Head over there, comment on his videos, like, subscribe if you enjoy his stuff. He's got some really great videos out on battles and gives nice little short versions of some lore I haven't even covered yet because I'm quite frankly not too greenskins yet. Beyond that, just a reminder, if you go into the description box below this video or click on the Warhammer shield that you're seeing right now, you'll be taken to my Patreon page where you can learn about certain kinds of incentives for supporting the channel, like getting to see videos like this days or even sometimes weeks in advance, or getting to learn Warhammer from me personally and all sorts of other stuff. So if you want to check that out, just click that shield there. Be sure to like, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll have some more videos out later this week. Thanks so much. Bye.